Hello, BookTube. Welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is the last 10 books tag. Okay, so Anjanette Barr over at the Book Bar, that's with Barr with two R's, was kind enough to tag me in this, which I think is a pretty fun book tag that I enjoyed getting the answers to. I encourage you, I'll link her channel below. Encourage you to check it out. I've had a great time seeing the different things that she's reading with her children. I also have two younger children, so it's great to always get recommendations with that. I really appreciate that sort of thing. And one of the other things she likes to do on her channel is pair up readings with drinks. Usually tea. I really respected her Scotch and cider choice for her book tag video. But in honor of that, I've got a Connecticut Porter here, so that one's for you, Anjanette. So let's begin this tag. 10 questions, 10 last books, or last 10 books. The first one, last book you didn't finish. It's rare that I don't finish books. There have been some that I've kind of DNF'd. It doesn't happen very often. There was a point where I was reading a lot of Christian apologetics, seeing if, any of them were compelling. And there were some that I definitely read that I respected, but a lot more that I didn't have to read too much into it to realize that it wasn't going to be convince me of anything. But the last one that I didn't finish, but I do still intend to, and that's Darwin's Dangerous Idea, Evolution and the Meanings of Life by Daniel Dennett. And this is just something that I wasn't in the headspace for. I got about 70 pages into it or something like that, and I found that I just wasn't in the mood to be diving into this. I do plan to finish it. Maybe this year I'll finish it. I don't know. But I think it was about maybe like 2 summers ago. I kind of just put it back on the shelf and haven't picked it up again yet until I needed it for a prop for this tag. So yeah, that's one that I have not finished yet. The next one is the last book you reread, and that would be Roald Dahl's The Witches. This was a favorite of mine when I was a kid, and last year I read it with my son, and he also really enjoyed it. So yeah, that was a reread for me. Last one that I actually reread. And last book you bought, that would be The Age of the Vikings by Anders Winroth. A general survey of Viking history. I believe it brings in archaeology. This is from Princeton University Press. I am definitely an enthusiast when it comes to Norse culture, Norse history, Norse aesthetics. I find a real certain connection to that era, and I'm looking forward to diving this one. This was the last one that I had bought. The next one, last book you said you read but didn't. I don't lie about that sort of thing on purpose, but one that I realized I was not being truthful with, and that would be Joseph Campbell, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. I think originally published in the 40s. This is his work on looking at myths and similarities between myths and heroes' stories, and going through. Now, the thing is, I had convinced myself mistakenly that I had read this. But what actually happened was back in high school, I had read The Power of Myth, which is the published version of his interview with Bill Moyers that he did in the mid-'80s. That really kind of made Campbell blow up in the national consciousness at least. And so I had read this back in high school, and over time I had forgotten that these were two different books. So I had assumed that I had read this, but I realized eventually that I had not read this. So last summer I read it. So now when I say, yes, I've read The Hero with a Thousand Faces, I can say that is true. So I'm no longer lying about that on purpose or otherwise. Last book you wrote in the margins of. I am not somebody who generally does that. I make notes on separate pieces of paper, and notebooks, things like that. Sometimes I'll have a Google Doc on my phone that I'll start typing notes into, especially if I did that a lot during grad school, so that all my notes would be there and I can just work off the same doc when I'm writing. I don't like doing it, especially because I don't want to constantly be reminded of myself the first time I went through it. I want to be able to have fresh thoughts. I don't want to be kind of a slave trapped to my initial thoughts all the time. And it becomes distracting to me to have a bunch of things in the margins. But one that I do plan on highlighting and writing in, and I'm doing this on purpose, and that is The Wanderer's Havamal. Translated by Jackson Crawford. This is supposed to be the wisdom of the god Odin. Most of this probably originates from the 900s, although the version we have is written down in the 1200s. And the reason for this is I already mentioned that I love Viking history. I found this really fascinating. It's basically just good practical advice for people then and now. And he calls this, it's originally just the Havamal, but he calls it the Wanderer's Havamal. And it's in this nice portable, edition that is meant to be carried around. It's meant to be thrown inside a luggage suitcase when you're traveling. And with that, I figured if I want a pristine copy, it's cheap enough I can get one to put it right on my shelf. But I want to be able to actually move around with this. And I want to be able to highlight the passages that I like the most so I can find them easier. So I do intend to write in this one, but that is a rare case indeed. I don't usually do that. The next question is, last book you had signed. Again, I don't usually have books signed. I'm not a signature person necessarily. Before COVID, I used to go to horror conventions, and I wouldn't really even go up to celebrities. I'd kind of go inside the signing room, and I'd see, oh, that's so-and-so, and I'd look around the room, and like, okay, I saw them. But I'm not one that waits in line. I don't pay for signatures, mostly because I don't have anything to really talk with them about. I can say, oh, I loved your movies. That's not, I'm not one for small talk. So book signings are exceedingly rare for me. I did meet Jane Goodall one time, and I had her sign a book, but the last one, and this was kind of more of a special occasion, was Tony Horwitz's Midnight Rising. John Brown and the Raid That Sparked the Civil War. Tony Horwitz is one of my favorite authors. Confederates in the Attic, A Voyage Long and Strange, Baghdad Without a Map. He had a wonderful knack for mixing history and journalism and travel logs all into one to make this just absolute page turners. Very insightful and thoughtful, but also sometimes hilarious as well. And I just adored his work. He unfortunately passed away just a few years ago, sudden heart attack, gone too soon. But I had walked into a local bookstore and I had found out almost at the last minute that he was giving a talk about this book at a local historical society. I live in Western Connecticut. John Brown was actually born in Torrington, Connecticut. I'm a few towns away from there. And at the Litchfield Historical Society, I found out that he was going to be giving a talk about this book. And, it was within a few hours. I told my wife, we have to go to this. I'm a big fan of Tony Horwitz. And, we went, and it was a, fairly small group. There was maybe a dozen of us inside the Historical Society room, and listened to him talk, and talking about John Brown and the legacy. And it was a very great conversational time. And afterwards, of course, he did a book signing. And I was able to tell me how much I really liked his books. And he asked me, what do you do for a living? And this is when I had just started teaching, actually. And so when he heard that, he wrote something very nice in here. He wrote, to Vincent, a history teacher, one of my heroes. He got a signature there. And I just thought that was pretty terrific. I especially, I put this on the shelf, and then after he died, I'm like, ugh. I've actually been afraid to read it because I don't want to ruin it. I am going to read it. I actually have not read it, and I feel really guilty about that. But this is going to be going on my TBR, the upper echelon of things to get to. So I will definitely be getting to this. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite books. as far as a keepsake, I mean. I'd actually found, accidentally, at Borders, a signed copy of his A Voyage Long and Strange in a bargain bin at Borders bookstores. So I was excited about that. And that was before I got to meet him and get the book signed. So I actually have 2 books signed by him. So anyway, that's a very rare occasion, though, for me. Last book you lost. I'm not sure. It's been so long since I've lost a book. I think the last one I lost was probably like years ago. I think it was like some Calvin and Hobbes comic strip collections that didn't make it to a move or something like that. But it's been a long time since I've actually lost a book, I believe. Next question. Last book you had to replace. So I do have an answer for this one. And that was when I was reading through Jane Austen. I had read through quite a few of her works, and I had gotten to Emma. And I had these nice paperback editions that were, I think, published in the 90s. They were beautiful covers. They looked really good on the shelves. But as I'm reading Emma, I went from like page 120 something, and then it skipped to page 150 something, and then that went up to a page 180 something, and then went back down to 150 something. So there was just 30 pages missing from this book. Fortunately, it's in the public domain, so I was able to find those missing pages pretty quickly and read through. But no matter how nice those books looked on the shelf, knowing that this was this frustrating misprint, I knew it had to be replaced. So I had picked up the complete novels of Jane Austen in this kind of gilded, decent hardback edition. It's the complete novels, so I now have a complete version of Emma, as well as Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, Northanger Abbey, and Persuasion. And I've read all of those except for Mansfield Park. I have not read that one yet. I not only got the complete novel collection, but it also freed up some shelf space because this took up less room than the paperbacks did. So that's the last one to replace. And then finally, last book you had an argument over. I can't say that happens very often. One of the reasons I joined BookTube is because I didn't have a lot of people to talk to about books with. And if you don't have people to talk about books with, you're not going to get in too many arguments over books. I've certainly gotten into debates over things like the Bible, I guess. Not an argument. I've had respectful debates with friends. I've certainly felt like I was arguing with a book while reading it. I mentioned some of those apologetics, or even something like Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. I kind of read that throughout it. But it's not something that I generally have arguments over, just because of the circles I run in, I guess. And that's it. I guess there were 9 questions, unless I'm missing one. It was 9 questions instead of 10. I hope so. Hope I didn't miss one. But that was the last 10 books tag. And once again, thanks to Anjanette. And as far as tagging, I'm not sure exactly who has done this tag. I know it's an older tag. But one person I know who hasn't done it is somebody who's very new to BookTube. So I guess, I'm going to tag Mark from Book Time with Elvis. I know that he's been eagerly making videos, and they've been fun, and I think he'll have a good time with this. So, Mark, if you see this video, you want to give the tag a shot, you're welcome to it. I'd like to see your answers. All right. Thank you very much, BookTube.